Hello again. Welcome to Lesson 2 of the Introduction to Wellness unit. Today we're going to be covering cardiovascular endurance, heart rates, and we're going to be completing a task called the Heart Rate Lab. In the Wellness unit booklet, we're covering pages 18 to 22. You can find the Wellness unit booklet in a PDF format on our phys ed website. See the link above, click grade 10, go to mandatory assignments, and you will click the Introduction to Wellness unit booklet, and it will download as a PDF. You can view the pages that we're going to be talking about in this document. Today, we're going to be talking about cardiovascular health. Cardiovascular endurance focuses on the efficiency of your heart and lungs and how well they work to each other. There's a variety of activities that develop this component, as you can see on this slide. Continuous sports can also be added, such as swimming, cycling, cross-country skiing, soccer, jogging, and much more. The goal is to be able to do something continuously for a long period of time, like 20 to 30 minutes or longer, with your heart rate somewhere around 140 to 170 beats per minute. Here you'll see the FIT principle found on page 18, referring to the cardiovascular endurance, otherwise known as aerobic endurance. You'll notice the frequency, in order to improve your cardio, needs to be 3 to 5 times per week. The intensity needs to be a moderate to vigorous intensity, which is referring to 60 to 85% of your maximum heart rate. We'll be talking about what your maximum heart rate is later today. The time is a minimum of 20 minutes. So notice that the amount of time is continuous, not just go hard for 2 minutes and then stop, and go hard again for 2 minutes and then stop. It needs to be continuous. And the type of cardio can be a variety of things, as mentioned in the slide before. Anything that gets you moving and gets your heart pumping for a continuous amount of time is referred to as cardio. On this slide, you'll notice that this slide is just helping you know how hard you're working out based on the physical signs that you are showing when you exercise. There are 3 different intensities that you need to understand and know. There is light, moderate, and vigorous. Each of these has a specific heart rate range that you might recognize or some symptoms that you might feel during exercise. For example, if someone is walking, you are likely going to be feeling the light intensity. If someone is jogging, you're going to some people will feel the moderate. And if some people are sprinting, lots of people will start to feel the vigorous. But it is based on fitness levels, age, and other things that work with your cardio. The heart rate ranges for light is 50 to 65% of your maximum heart rate. Your maximum heart rate is how high your heart can go. It's 100%. It's 220 minus your age. We'll talk about that shortly. Moderate is 65 to 80%, and vigorous is 80 to 100%. Notice the exercise descriptions here that are along the side. You'll notice that some of these symptoms are quite common. For example, light intensity means that someone might be breathing normally and it's quite easy to talk. Moderate intensity means there's starting to notice your breath and it's starting to get a little bit difficult. And vigorous intensity is quite difficult to talk. Of these 3, you can do the light intensity for the longest period of time and vigorous for the shortest period of time. Think of it this way. If someone goes for a walk, some people can walk around for long periods of time and many minutes or sometimes hours. Whereas vigorous, someone cannot sprint for hours or long periods of time. They might be able to sprint for 30 seconds to a minute or slightly longer to maximum 90 seconds. And it's very difficult. When you're in the light intensity, lots of people can exercise for 3 to 5 days a week. The 5 to 7 days a week. Moderate is 3 to 5 days a week, and vigorous it's good to do 1 to 2 days a week where you're showing some vigor. So here's a summary page on page 19. You might want to star or highlight this page so that you know that this page is something that you want to recognize. You need to know an example and what is the 3 different intensities that you find in cardiovascular endurance or all exercise. Now, let's talk about heart rates. What are some new words and definitions that we need to know about our heart? Your maximum heart rate is called an MHR for short. It is 100% of your heart rate. How to calculate it is 220 minus your age. So for example, if you are a 16-year-old person, you would take 220 minus 16, and that would equal 204. And that is 204 beats per minute. That is 100% of your heart rate, or as high as your heart can possibly go. So remember in the earlier slides, when moderate intensity was 65 to 80%, it is easy to calculate using a little bit of math, what your heart rate should be during these zones. If you want to play a sport at game speed, it's important to max out your heart rate during some of your workouts. If you want to improve your cardiovascular endurance quickly, you should add some things like that into your workouts. You could increase the intensity by increasing the number of sets or increasing the time that you exercise. Note this page on page 20. These terms are often used in our classes or in articles or magazines and apps. It's important you understand what each heart rate refers to. We'll be getting to take these various heart rates in fitness tests and in labs. Notice the instructions on this page. Listed on the left are various terms referring to different heart rates and times heart rate should be taken. Decide which definition is best for each term and place the corresponding number in the blank provided. It is now time to start to work on this and try and match up the definitions. So try and see if, I'll pause the video for a second and see if you can match the number with the statement over here. Can you guess it right? Let's start with number 1. Which one of these statements refers to resting heart rate? Resting heart rate refers to the heart rate taken immediately after waking up in the morning. It's when your heart rate is the lowest. The lower the heart rate, the better the cardio. What statement refers to number 2, the starting heart rate? If you guessed an estimate of the true resting pulse, usually taken after lying, sitting, or standing for a minute, you're right. A starting heart rate would be an example. It would be where you take a heart rate before exercise begins. We've done this before with our fitness testing. We took our heart rate before we started our exercise. Number 3, a working heart rate, is the top section. Heart rate taken immediately after activity is stopped. This is where your heart rate is the highest. When your heart is working, it's trying to get oxygen into your muscles in your body. What statement goes with number 4? The bottom one. Recovery rate. Heart rate that is taken 1 minute following exercise, indicating how quickly the heart is returning to the starting rate. This is usually done after exercise and how quickly your heart can return back to its starting rate. The faster it can return to the start, the more fit your heart is. And the last one is number 5, recovery time. The amount of time required for the heart to return to the starting rate. So just as I mentioned before, this is how fast your heart can return back to the starting. The faster it can do that, the more fit that you are. This is an important question on our wellness unit test. On the right, I've listed the 5 definitions. Let's see if you can guess what goes in the blanks. The question is, how do we know if someone has good or bad cardiovascular health? An indication of a person's cardiorespiratory fitness level is their Resting heart rate. Good guess. A low resting heart rate is an indication of good cardiorespiratory or cardiovascular fitness level. Another measure of cardiorespiratory fitness is heart recovery rate. The faster the heart returns to the resting heart rate, the stronger the heart. In general, most of the population's resting heart rate falls between 60 to 80 beats per minute. As you age, your resting heart rate typically rises. Higher cardiorespiratory fit people usually have a lower resting heart rate. Now it's time to do the heart rate lab. It's time to get what you need to do for this is you need to be able to find your heart rate. Some people have technology to do this and using a watch or a heart rate monitor. If you have one available to you, that is also okay. But I'm going to be asking everyone today to use to find their radial pulse or carotid pulse. To find that, look at the pictures. Usually the most accurate location for finding a pulse is your carotid or the one found in your neck because it's closer to your heart. You need to use your index finger and your middle finger. Do not use your thumb. Your thumb has its own pulse and it might get confusing. I'm not going to ask you to take your heart rate for a minute long. Instead, I'm going to ask you to take your heart rate for 15 seconds, and then eventually we will do some math later and multiply it by 4 to get beats per minute. So find the pulse method that works best for you. On page 21, you'll see the same description of what you need to do for the heart rate lab. If you have lots of space or you go outside, you have more space to do this. What I'm going to ask you to do is follow the instructions. Start from the top and work your way down all in a continuous motion. Do not take big breaks in between each of these activities. The first thing you're going to do is lie down for 1 minute, stay perfectly still and quiet, and you're going to try and get your heart rate as low as you possibly can. By lying down for 1 minute, after the 1 minute, you're going to take a 15-second heart rate measure. You're going to count your beats per minute, finding with your fingers in your neck or on your radial pulse, and you're going to write down the beats per minute in the second box here after 15-second count. This assignment is also going to be on the EDSB assignment, so notice that you're going to write or type in your answers on the EDSB assignment that will go with this lesson. Make sure you have a phone or a watch that you can time how long you're doing each of these activities for. After you do the live for 1 minute and then you take your heart rate, then you're going to go to the second activity, sitting down for 1 minute. After you take your heart rate, after the 1 minute, then you're going to stand. After you take your heart rate, do walk. And continue down this method here. After you finish everything, then you can multiply this 15-second count by 4, and you can write in the beats per minute on each of these sections on the right-hand side. Please make sure, again, you do not take 2 or 3 minutes between each exercise. Try and make it as continuous as you can. That is it for today's lesson. If you have any questions, message your teacher on EDSB or ask as many as you need. We'll see you next time.